Hello everybody, and I'm back. For those of you that never got to experience this in the first place, this is Matt Marshall, and I used to do videos for the historic DeKalb system on our next-gen system, and now that we've moved to PowerChart, there was a request to do a few more of these. I'm a family practitioner at Emory downtown Decatur, and have worn an IT hat in the system for a while. My job basically has been just trying to find efficiencies, any tips or tricks to try to make navigating through the EMR a little bit easier. No discredit to the trainers who worked with us as we were moving on to PowerChart. But first of all, they're not clinicians, so they're not always looking at it quite the same way we are. And also, they had a great deal to train us on in a short period of time. So we probably felt like we were drinking through a fire hose. And even if we were taught some of this information, it may have slipped out of our brain before we were able to use it. At least I know it did for me. I was doing some talking recently with Sonia Green and Tina Ann Thompson, and we had all realized that there were a lot of things that it seemed like providers had simply forgotten. So I thought I'd try to do a few videos and see if we could bring everybody up to speed and help out a bit. First off, though, there is no most efficient way to work through PowerChart or any EMR for that matter. It's really up to you, but I certainly encourage you to continue to try to improve and improve. Over the years, as I've gone out and looked at providers, I see a lot of them have adopted, unfortunately, some of these slowest techniques for getting from point A to point B and just never looked for anything better. Even though I'm now, I guess, probably about 5 to 6 months in working on PowerChart, I'm still finding new stuff all the time. So certainly encourage you not to just stick with what you've done, but keep looking for something that might be better. I'm going to do a series of 4 videos. The first one's going to be some general navigation, then I'll do one on medications, one on charting, and then one on some customization. So in general, one of the first things is just some basic navigation that some folks have forgotten about or just simply overlook. Unfortunately, these are really busy screens. There's a lot of information on them, and some of the arrows don't necessarily draw your eyeballs to help you go look for certain things. So I'll start off with one of them, which is the big gray taskbar. Depending on how big your screen is, sometimes people want to have this available or not. So if you want to keep it on your screen at all times, simply click on this button and it pins it to the left side of the screen. If you really value the real estate on your laptop, you can always unpin it, and then it just shows up whenever you hover over top. Completely up to you, as are all of these things. The other thing to check out to make sure that you're optimized for pretty much all of us in the ESA, probably best to have this set to ambulatory. And if for some reason yours doesn't say that, this arrow should allow you to select which one you want. So that just gives you the most useful set of drop-down tasks. The other next thing, I guess, is looking at your list and ambulatory workflow. Different docs will work out of different sections. For me, I have found ambulatory workflow probably works best for my complete charting. In fact, I rarely use the QOC anymore except for a few isolated areas, and I'll get into some of my tricks on that later. Again, you don't have to use them. But keep in mind that you can adjust these items up and down depending on what works best in your flow. For me, the reason I have visits at the top is that it's a way for me to look at any upcoming visits. And in just my workflow, when I open up the patient's visit, I always like to see if they're going to be seeing a specialty in the near future, or maybe they have another appointment. In fact, I have caught several issues where patients have had several appointments scheduled with me unintentionally, and I've been able to free up some of my scheduled time by realizing that when the patient's in the office in front of me. But as you can see by my list here, I usually work from their visits. I go next into the home medications. And the reason I've put that there is one of the big markers that Emory tracks is our reconciliation. And by forcing it there, really my medical assistant goes through, makes a first pass, and then I simply will go right to here, go to the reconciliation page, and do my reconciliation. So before I even see the patient, I'm already reviewing and reconciling meds. Oftentimes I'll even print a page of that. Actually, if you open this up, go here to print, it will actually print a very nice copy of their copy of their medications, which you can then take into the exam room with you if you want to use some scratch paper and further review those meds. I may work things a little differently in the fact that I rarely have a computer in the exam room with me, but again, it's just your own patient flow. So these arrows also are ones that people often haven't looked at. They simulate basically what's happening over on this side as well. So you can go back and forth into what you've been working in before. So as you can see over here, as I'm moving, these tabs are changing as well. If you wanted to look at the most useful one, here's the 6 that I've already worked on with this test patient. Most of you have realized what the home button does, which is taking you back to your provider view, which is your home landing page. As you also may recall, this teeny little button up here will let you see your last 5 patients that you've worked on. Another one that I can't pull up because it's sort of hard to do without using a real patient that comes out of a message. But if you're in your messaging section and the patient's name pops up here, you will, if you look closely, you'll notice that there's another one of these little arrows right beside the patient name. And if you click on that, it gives you the identical drop-down list to what is over here. Just one of the many ways that EMRs seem to do repetitive work, but it's really just what works best for your workflow. One of the things I wanted to show you guys as well is a bit on some document viewing. One of the questions that I have had, actually I'll go to clinical notes. One of the questions I've often had is how do you look at scanned items larger or in full page? It is this item here. Now unfortunately this is a small bit that was in there to begin with, but that is how you can look at something in full size. So it is this item right here which actually says full screen view. If you click on that, you will be able to see the scanned document. Another item I wanted to show you on this page, which I'll pull this out to make it a little easier. For all of us that are in the ESA, when our medical assistants are scanning most anything into the system, it should go under this subfolder. So if they have had outside items that have been scanned in, such as colonoscopies and things like that, it should still end up here under the ESA tab, and then you can open it up and take a deeper dive into seeing what those may be. Keep in mind also that you have the ability to label these for your medical assistant. Every one of your medical assistants should have received a piece of paper that gives them the major folder titles, and then the subfolder names are really up to either you or your MA. So if you haven't discussed it with your MA, I encourage you to do so, because sometimes you'll find your MA is putting things in places where you wouldn't actually want them. Let's see, one more item that I wanted to show people in this particular video, and this is actually a good patient to show this. Sometimes when you're looking at their vitals, it looks sort of gunky in my opinion. Oops, sorry, I'll try to be smooth with this. We're used to looking linearly down the row and thinking that this is all one set of data, but if you actually look at the data, you can see that September 12th, September 10th, September 3rd, if you go and click on this, and unfortunately you can't set it to default, but if you click on that, it moves everything into rows based on the date itself. And I find that that makes it much easier to track across timelines. Otherwise, you're having to pay attention to 2 sets of variables within each box. So that's one more trick. Unfortunately, again, can't quite set it to be a default. It always defaults to this view. But if you've got somebody with a lot of data, this one can clean it up. I'll be doing a few more videos in the not too distant future, and I hope to get them up and let you know when they're there. Thanks.